Good morning, everyone. I have a quote here from Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. From his 1963 book, Strength to Love. It is a collection of his sermons, which I own and recommend for others to obtain the ownership. It's a good book, not very long, but it's very powerful, and it has a lot of wonderful bits of material. I read it as more of an outsider. I'm not steeped in religion, but much of that book really spoke to me, and I felt that it is definitely worth owning. And I would read it again. The quote goes, "The ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in moments of comfort and convenience, but where he stands at times of challenge and controversy." And for me, um, I think it's just as important in 2019 as it was in 1963 and even before. I think we see a lot of groups where we question what they're willing to do as far as being born into an entitled or privileged category that others are not. And what are they willing to do to accept challenges in the midst of controversy where they are going to sacrifice some of their comforts and conveniences so that others might have a few more comforts and conveniences. And historically, we've probably seen a balance of yes and no. And even today, we see a balance of yes and no. We probably just hear more about the negative than we do the positive, but there's a lot of good people out there from different sides, different walks, doing things for, different groups that are not as advantaged as they are. And comforts and conveniences are luxuries when we're just talking about basic human rights, equality, justice. So what are we willing to do? And we all, on some level, fall into these categories. And I will say that because whether this is a black-white issue, it can also be one of gender between male and female. It can be one between straight and homosexual. It can be between what we deem as an acceptable religion in this country and what outside religions do not get, a fair shake sometimes as far as our assessments or our stereotypes of them. And my sister Dina, I love when I speak to her because she always reminds me that the discrepancies in life between just being able-bodied and having physical challenges are in place. So what am I willing to do as a male to help ensure that that there are stricter laws against, rape? I can't run out in the street and try and prevent those things, but we can get behind what a lot of groups, women's groups, or just groups in general are telling us as far as rapes and statistics. That same thing would go for children as well. What am I willing to do to help protect my neighbors who may worship differently from neighbors? Just being able to say, hey, they're not bothering you, leave them be. What am I willing to do as far as standing up for rights of the gay community and not facing hate crimes? The same with religion. What are we willing to do to see that those laws become stricter? What am I willing to do to see more about finding more out about the laws where penalties are concerned for parking and handicap, or are there going to be more zoning laws? Because it's really easy for me just to park a little further out. It's if that's one of the comforts and conveniences I have to give up so that someone else might do better, I'm willing to do that. That's not a problem. Any of those things. Am I willing to give food to somebody who was born into, a little bit more of an impoverished condition? Absolutely. Food, clothing, those things. So what are we willing to do? Because sometimes we just give things and it's more of a comfort and convenience to get rid of them than it is to actually help that person. So let's not make our donations, just a purge of, things that we just don't want. What are we really willing to do to help? And sometimes on a greater scale. It's great to feed and clothe people, but when you see real injustice, when we see people being killed, accosted, raped in our society as, just everyday functioning people, what are we all willing to do to help, put those things out? It takes a lot of, decency. It takes a lot of courage. And this is, I think, where land of the free and home of the brave comes from. We have to be brave in order for everyone to be free. And that bravery is not just getting into fights. That bravery is acknowledging within ourselves, I have it good on a lot of levels. Now, what can I do to make sure that people who don't have it as good have it equally as good? We can't be afraid of equality because supremacy has gotten us nowhere. Because for some groups, you are immediately stereotyped on sight. And for some groups, it's not enough to be as good as someone else. You have to be even better. And even then, it still comes with, the stigma that it's still not good enough. So there's a lot of prejudice and stereotyping that immediately sets up roadblocks, and which is why a lot of people generationally have not been able to flourish. There's growth and admission for fault for everyone. And a lot of times in particular demographics, we are seeing those who leave the rest of us to be representatives and override certain stereotypes of our own demographics. And what can we do to educate and enlighten and encourage others to, just kind of raise their game a little bit? Doesn't mean that we're better than they are. Doesn't mean that they're doing the worst. They might be at their best position possible, but how can we help? The same way we would help somebody get clothing for a job interview. How can we do that? How can we clothe their mind and, get them to that next level so their self-awareness is greater? I'm going to leave it at that. It was a fantastic quote, and I'm just spinning my personal philosophy onto an all-time human, not just a national leader, not just a civil rights leader, but just a human. So, guys, feel free to add in where you can. I'd love to read your comments and kind of see where everybody's at with the same topic. And I don't know, just through good communication, honest communication, education, and awareness, we can all kind of start to understand each other's plight. And that way we can kind of grow, have more empathy, and become, a stronger people. Have a fantastic day. Peace, love, unity, solidarity.